Exploited. Someone or something used unfairly, selfishly, or for another's advantage, often involving unethical manipulation or abuse of resources. It means taking full advantage of a situation, person, or resource, sometimes for profit or to make practical use of something. How many have you been exploited? Welcome to Principles. What's your societal position? What's your societal position? Who is soliciting you? And when I say who, I'm talking most on entities. We're dependent for food, water, money, for the most part, from other people. But when you look at certain demographics within certain zip codes, you see certain businesses in those zip codes, title loans. They meant to keep you down. They give you some money, but you can't make the payment, you lose your vehicle, and they still want to sue you for the difference. Payday loans, you paying double, triple, hell, 5, 10 times what you borrow because you needed it when you needed it, and you're paying for that convenience. But they're taking advantage of the situation that you in because of what you need. You're being exploited. If I need $500, but it's going to cost me $1,500 for that $500, me personally, and I don't want to. I'm not knocking nobody for your circumstances or what you're dealing with, but if I gotta spend $1,000 over time for $500 I need today, then whatever I need it for today is gonna have to wait. I'd rather take the hit on my credit. I'd rather take the hit from not having resources extended to me because I miss a payment than to take out bad debt to that regard. I need 500, but you charging me 1,000. And these are low numbers. There's some people paying thousands of dollars for a couple hundred. They're being exploited because the convenience. You can fill out this little paperwork on the app, you get it within an hour. It's a trade off. I give you 500, but I give you whatever time you need to pay it back, but I'm gonna make 1,000 or thousands of dollars because you needed time to pay it back. Many times people are often exploited and they don't realize it. And some of them realize it, but the convenience added to the fact is what you ponder on, and it's beneficial to the degree that when you go through it, you don't care about what it costs you because you need it in that moment. And I understand that. Bad credit, excuse me, bad credit costs you more than having good credit. These are all bad credit products. Payday loans, title loans, cash advances. There's no worse thing than taking a loan against or borrowing against you, your person, and what you're capable of. But depending on where you at, where you live, your circumstances, you're being exploited. And a lot of people don't see this as such. You're being taken advantage of. In the Bible, it says the borrower is slave to the lender. I believe that to be true. I think the only true, real good debt is you purchasing a vehicle that you actually need and it's not a want. That's number one. And you getting a mortgage that you actually need and it's not a want. If you're buying a house and you're going to acquire a mortgage and you're financing everything through the mortgage, even if it's a new stick built home, why the hell are you getting granite countertops? I don't care about the aesthetics. You shouldn't care about the aesthetics. It's more about the necessity and what you need, not the appearance, not the imagery of what you need. But so many times people are caught in what they need. I remember years ago, a guy I knew, he was buying a home, brand new construction, first home, and he was telling me how they upgraded the cabinets and the flooring and the light fixtures and the countertops. And I'm like, why? Because it's nice and we can finance it all in. But if you say to someone, would you pay $10,000 and finance it over 30 years at 3% for $10,000? When you do the math on that, that's a horrible number. And most people be like, nah, I wouldn't do that. But they present it to you in this manner of convenience. Hey, we can give you X amount of dollars, 300,000, right? You can get this mortgage, 300,000. If the house costs you, and I'm using pre-pandemic numbers here as my frame of reference because things were different prior to. I'm put you in this house for 220,000. You're approved for 300,000. You want to do any upgrades? You want to get some stainless steel appliances? They may be good for 5 to 10 years. You want to get these granite countertops? They'd be good for a long time, but is it worth paying for the granite tops for 30 years? Is it worth paying for the light fixtures for 30 years? Because when you present it to people in the manner that, hey, yeah, they upgraded you, but that's all built into your mortgage, so you're literally paying for a goddamn light fixture for 30 years. You're paying for upgraded nickel, polished nickeled or brush nickeled faucets in your sinks over 30 years. You're paying for upgraded cabinets for 30 years. Too many times we get caught in the aesthetics of things, the image of things. And I'm simply saying, if those are the things you want, get the bare minimum in the beginning and then turn around and work towards upgrading later on. But I'll be damned if I paid over the course of 30 years for a damn light fixture or for some brushed nickel or polished nickel faucets or even countertops or even cabinets. You got to X a lot of that stuff out. But I get it because it's so new. You've never been here before. You want to go for the max. And I totally get it and I respect it. I just ask you to step back and see what it costs and is it really worth that? Because if I said to you, hey, you got socks on your feet, you willing to finance it for 30 years for socks? I don't know any socks that's going to last 30 years. I don't know any undergarments that's going to last 30 years. Ain't a whole lot of stuff gonna last 30 years. And the harsh reality of it is you can get a brand new stick built home today. But before them 30 years is up, and that's the average mortgage, 30 years, because the payment is comfortable. Before that time frame is up, how much money you think you done spend in that house? You gonna get a new roof in 30 years. You gonna get all new appliances in 30 years. Even if you're buying them one at a time, you're getting them in 30 years. You may need to upgrade the plumbing in 30 years. You might have some flooring issues in 30 years, but we don't take account for that because it's so convenient in the way it's presented to us that we get caught into, I can afford that payment. That payment is good, but at the same time, when other things happen, you need a new roof in 30 years. I've never seen, and I'm not saying they don't exist, but I've yet to see a house, a new construction home that they build that has one of those 50-year roofs on it. I ain't never seen that. You can get some architectural shingle, 25, 30 years. That's the life expectancy under normal conditions. That ain't hurricane, storm, hail, extreme heat. And the same applies to these 50-year roofs. Before that mortgage is paid for over a 30-year course of time, you've done a lot to that house. The appliances ain't gonna last you that long. The roof ain't gonna last you that long. And in some circumstances, the plumbing won't last you that long. But you don't see it because it's being presented to you so conveniently that we're so fixated on the payment. Same is true for cars. Same is true for four-wheelers and ATVs and golf carts. I remember seeing years ago these I don't even know what you call them, but they made by different people, but they're off road, but they're not legal to drive on road. I don't know if it's like a RTV or what they consider them to be, but I remember seeing them listed for like 25, 30,000, and they closed in, they got air conditioning, they got heat, they got a radio, windshield wipers, headlights, all that good stuff, but they ain't DOT legal. Or even a four-wheeler where it's, $7, $8, $9, $10,000 for a four-wheeler. Or a golf cart where it's 10 plus thousand for a golf cart, whether it's battery powered or gas powered. Or even a UTV where they're, $7, $8, $9,000. I don't know where you stand, but I tell you this. If I'm gonna purchase something with wheels and it's closed in cab, and it provides heat. I ain't want to say air conditioning. If it comes with heat, but it costs me a nickel, 5,000, or a dime, 10,000, and I can't put a DOT tag on it, a vehicle tag on it, and drive it to work or handle my business outside of secondary roads, that shit can stay where it's at. I get it. Everybody different. I don't see no practical way to convince me to spend 10 plus thousand, 5 plus thousand on something that I can move about a piece of land or property with, but I can't run down the street on non-secondary roads. And I'm specifically saying non-secondary roads because I understand in some markets where you can have golf carts and these UTVs on secondary roads as long as the person driving them has a license and they got this special tag on it, and that's cool. But if I can't drive it legally to work where I work and it costs me thousands of dollars, that shit can stay where it's at. And I say that with love. Not knocking no one for buying or spending the money. But if it's like buying a moped. Excuse me. The closest example I can give you to that is a moped. Mopeds are limited to secondary roads. They're not supposed to be on major highways and interstates. Why the hell would I buy a moped? Why would you buy a moped? Why would you buy something where you're limited? And it costs you a lot of money, but it can't get you to how you earn your money. So I'm not a big fan of that. And I'm not saying I knock people that are or that have these things. But I'm saying if you spend a lot of money, if a lot of your budget is tied up in four-wheelers, dirt bikes that are not DOT approved, UTVs, golf carts, and you can't even go to work in them, what are we doing? And I see them all the time on, Marketplace and different avenues where people are selling stuff. I see it all the time where they're thousands of dollars. And then some of them are nice. Like some of them UTVs I've seen, the Can-Ams, the Polaris. I'm sure they put lift kits and bigger tires and stuff like that on them. But as far as the ones I've seen, but they're not DOT legal. And I can't legally drive it to work. I can put insurance on it, but I can't legally drive it to work. They can keep it. That is of no use or no value to me. Now, everybody's circumstances is different, and I respect that. I totally respect that. I'm just putting it out there that sometimes we make purchases for the moment, not seeing the limited ability of those purchases. If you got a big family and a minivan will suit you, but you go and buy a sedan, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Now you may say, okay, well I can't afford, a minivan. Whatever the price point you at for the sedan, I'm sure you'll find a minivan in that realm. I'm sure you'll find a Toyota Sierra, I forget, Sienna, or a Honda Odyssey within that price range. You might not like the mileage, but I would take that over what else is available to me because I know I got longevity versus other manufacturers. They got, all the amenities. They look nice when they're new, but they're not long-term stuff. They're price point stuff. All this plays on the exploitation. When you go into certain hardware stores and you look at certain products, everything has a price point. The price point that you come in at is dictated by where you're at in life on your circumstances. But if you spend a couple $100 or a couple dollars more than the normal going rate, you get a different kind of warranty. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can go to Walmart and buy tools. You can go to Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace Hardware, True Value, different hardware stores. Harbor Freight, Northern Tool. You can go and buy tools for the things that you need. All right. So Craftsman tools is like top tier. Snap on tools is like top tier. I ain't gonna say like, they are. They are in the regard that you may spend double, triple the money to purchase these tools. But if it breaks, all you got to do is show up to a Snap on truck or a Craftsman dealer. No receipt in hand, no proof of purchase. You have a tool that broke. They replace it. They give you like this leeway. You know, you got a wrench that broke, a ratchet that broke. They made their bones on a lifetime guarantee and warranty of their product. So they honor it. So when you show up to these different entities that sell these products for a replacement, you just give them the faulty one and they give you another one. It'd be nice if a lot of things in life work like that. But everything got a price point. So the same tool that you see in different stores costs different prices because guess what? When it breaks, you got to buy another one. So would you spend $20 on a wrench that you need once in a blue moon? Or $60 or $100 on that same wrench that you need once in a blue moon but comes with a lifetime warranty? No questions asked. If I show up with a closed-in wrench and it's broken, it's a Craftsman, and I show up to a Craftsman dealer or supplier, they replace it. So sometimes being so good and too good can run you out of business. And it can hinder you to a degree in certain situations. Just being honest. Something else that I want to speak on for those that have them, those that are considering them. Student loans. I am not an opponent of higher education, but I do see the double taxation because if you get the loan, it ultimately dies with you. So my advice would be if you're going after a degree, whatever high level education that you're going after, and you're going to require student loans for it, it need to be worth more than the loans. Like you don't need to spend $100,000 to be a social worker. Social workers don't make $100,000 unless you live in the Northeast or on the West Coast, where the debt to income and inflation ratio is so different that the pay is much higher for jobs in the South. It's like, man, I wouldn't pay that much for somebody to do that. But then when you get up there and you try to find living arrangements, it's like, okay, I understand now. Yeah, I remember years ago, I was talking with a guy out of New York, or from New York, and he was telling me what he did for a living. He said, man, I make $60,000, a year doing that. And in the South, for what he was doing, shit, $60,000 to do that was platinum. That wasn't gold, that wasn't silver, that was platinum for what he was doing at that time. And I was like, man, they pay that much for that? But then he broke it down to me. Older cat, I respect him. He broke it down to me. The cost of living up there is different. So you might spend $1,200 on your mortgage, or you might be able to get a decent rent for around $800 to $1,000, maybe $1,100, maybe even $1,200 in the South. But it provides you everything you need, whether it's rent or mortgage. And you make, 40, $40,000, $50,000 a year. But up north and in more inflated markets, like just because you getting paid this, what you can't see in the South for this work is actually their poverty or their lower barrier. So they're struggling, and you're thinking they're making bank. You got a regular employee at a fast food restaurant making $60,000 a year up north. If you from the South, they're making bank. But when you see what it costs to live, it's like, damn, nah, they ain't the same. Or even on the West Coast, they ain't the same. You go to California, hell, and depending on what state you in and whatnot, but right now, the price of diesel is $5 a gallon. I got one truck that run on diesel, and I got another truck that run on gas. Gas, $3.79 right now today. Today is March 20th, 2026. The time of this recording. If I'm paying $5 for diesel in Virginia, they're probably paying $7, $8 in California for it. They're probably paying $6, $7 further north for it. I'm not sure. I'm speculating. And the same for gas. Different markets garner different demand. And sometimes we get so fixated on where we're at that we can't see certain things. So if you have a sanitation worker up north on the West Coast making $80,000 a year, we may see that as a gold mine being from the South. But their cost of living is so much higher. And the price of fuel follows the price of groceries and your commodities. The buck is always passed on to the consumer. So you got to be in a position where you can produce if you can, or create another avenue if you can. But the buck is always passed on to the consumer. If it costs me X amount of dollars more to do business, I'm passing that buck on to the consumer. In some cases they may see it, in some cases they may not see it. But that's simple business and business economics. Because if it didn't work like that, when I was a kid, I remember you can go to a McDonald's and get the supersized meal. I think, like add another 39 cents. Well, you can get a Big Mac for less than $8, whole meal. There was a time where in the early 2000s, Hardee's came out. And Hardee's is on where I'm from, the Southeast, but out in the Midwest and the West Coast is Carl's Jr. They came out with what they was calling a monster burger, a $6 burger, and people's like, oh man, that's an expensive burger. Who's gonna spend $6 on a burger? And they call it the monster burger. It really was a really big burger. I remember going to get it, making a special trip out of my way to go and get this burger because it was meaty. I was greedy. To only fast forward to now, I'm talking 2006, 7, 8, around that time. Fast forward to now, 2026, they still market that burger, the monster burger. They don't market it the $6 burger because I think that burger by itself now is like 10 and some change. What they don't tell you is we've shrunk that burger. Sit with your elders, they'll tell you. I remember talking with my dad and my uncle, and they talk about the Whopper. I don't remember the Whopper being a small burger, but I don't remember it being as big as they said it was. And My dad got really big hands, and he was like, I had to eat that with two hands. And I'm like, man, you exaggerate. He's like, nah, the Whopper used to be a big burger. The Big Mac used to be a big burger. But over time, just like with everything else, you're paying more for less. You're being exploited. And it's not always negative when you hear that word exploited. It's just you're paying more for less, but you're still getting some of what you are paying for. You're just not getting the whole shebang. Over time, things have changed. You know, a dozen of eggs is probably $5. A dozen of eggs used to be like $2. Go and try to buy some ribs and some steaks. The prices change. It ain't what you used to paying. And don't let social media get a hold of a good cut of meat that's actually good and fatty. And I say fatty because honestly, the most fat that a meat contains, the more tender it is. So once social media get a hold of that and they start boosting it, what used to be considered a trash cut of meat is now being exploited. And it costs even more. I'm not knocking nobody for what they do. I'm not knocking no hustle, no none of that. I'm just simply stating what used to cost this now costs this because everyone is running with this, thinking, all right, it's good, it's cool, we good. We don't consider what things actually cost us. Like even with a mortgage, right? You get a mortgage. The average mortgage is either 15, 20, or 30-year financing. Most people go for the 30 because actually give you the best payment. And I don't knock that either. Right? What I will suggest is if you can pay extra towards the principal. No pun intended. Pay extra towards the principal. Because your interest over time will decrease. Because if you ever look at the amortization schedule on your mortgage when you close, and you see what you're paying, what you financed, and what it would cost you after 30 years if you paid all your payments the way you're supposed to on time. If you never looked at that schedule, I suggest you look at it. If you never looked at your paperwork outside of getting your mortgage and acquiring it and all that, I suggest you look at it. Because I would say in 95% of cases, you pay for that house twice. The first 15 years is mostly interest payments, not principal. The latter years are mostly principal, like financing a car. You have finance a car and they say, okay, it's going to be this percentage rate, and they give you the paperwork, and it's going to cost you $4,000 in interest fees. Well, if you finance for 5 years, depending on what that payment is and what that vehicle costs, I would say the first year, maybe a year and a half to 2 years is going to be nothing but interest only. But you won't see it because you're still making your payments. You still got the vehicle. You won't see it. Most people that go into a mortgage don't see that. And most people that go into a 30-year, it's convenient. You just got to have a backup plan to what you're going to do on the back end. Because no one would say, hey, I want this home for $300,000, but I'm financing $300,000 in interest. They ain't gonna tell you that. But when you look at that schedule, that amortization schedule, and you see the initial cost, the cost after 30 years of you making your payments on time, That's what it is. It damn near doubles. And then what they don't tell you, for those that's crossing this bridge, I'm going to educate you right quick. What they don't tell you is over the course of the 30 years, guess what else happens? The insurance goes up, the taxes go up. So you may start out with $1,000, $1,500 a month. By the time you get to that 20th year, you might be looking at $2,000 or better because your insurance is going up. You can shop it as much as you want, but the insurance is always going up and the taxes is always going up. You can't outrun the inflation. And inflation, I feel like, is something the government say, hey, you know what? We're going to keep these people here. We don't want them to grow. We don't want them to get too much. And it's hard to outrun that inflation for that, in my opinion, for that reason. Because you're sitting there doing what you're supposed to do, paying your bills all the time, making extra money, but you can't outrun that inflation. Every time you make more, something else in your life or the economy or society, the price of it increases. And it's hell. It's hell trying to get ahead in a world that always want the most from you. You working more hours, it tax you to death. You agree to these terms for 30 years, but they don't tell you I'm gonna rate the taxes when the taxes go up, your escrow account got to be in a certain position, so therefore it's gonna reflect on your mortgage, and you have no control over that. If the cost of insurance goes up in your market and it's in escrow, you have no control over that. And your payment goes up. So if you live in an area where it's low-lying, flood-prone, hurricane-prone, for whatever reason, tornadoes start happening there more than normal, and the insurance rates skyrocket, they don't tell you that, hey, you're not locked into this rate for 30 years from the insurance company. Or you're not locked into this rate for 30 years from the county or the independent city that you live in. And I feel like there should be an agenda that is being pushed and the benefits of the citizens to reflect such. If I sign up for 30 years to rent a property for someone for 30 years for $1,000 a month, they're locked into the fact that I'm willing to pay $1,000 a year for 30 years. They can't increase the price on me as long as the structure is standing. And for them, over the long haul, that is beneficial. But for most of us with a mortgage, again, they don't tell you that. You're locked in on your rate, your interest rate. But what they don't tell you is your insurance is going to go up, and it is going to go up. Every time for renewal, it's going to go up. I don't care if you ain't had no incidents, your credit score went up, your income it's going up. The same is true for your taxes. You ain't doing nothing, you ain't bothering nobody, but guess what? Now your property worth more, so we expect you to pay more. I feel like a lot of those costs and expenses should be locked in at your rate of what you purchased since you signed up for a 30-year note. That's what I feel. But a lot of these counties, states, and independent cities are not going to acknowledge that. They're not going to acknowledge it because they want that money. They want your money. They're not going to acknowledge that. They're not going to lock you in for that rate because everybody greedy. They want your taxes to continue to go up. They want you to continue to pay more. You agree to this financial institution that I'll pay this mortgage for 30 years. And when you get the breakdown of it, your mortgage is not going up because they're charging you more to borrow on 30 years of this debt. Your mortgage is going up because the tax rate went up as far as the value of the property and what the county, the city, or the independent city tax you at. That changed. And you have to have a certain amount in escrow. But that number changes. And the companies you deal with for insurance, their number changes because the value changes by the county assessment or the city assessment. They don't tell you none of this when you buying a house. If you meet someone or you know someone that has a mortgage, I'm willing to bet you, especially if they got a little age on them, if they started out with a mortgage in 2000, it might have been $700-800 a month. It's 2026 now, so for most people who bought a house in 2000, they got 4 more years left. Let's say they started out with $800 a month in 2000. Some say, damn, that's rich. Yeah, and that is rich for 2000. But now, now, in 2026, the same $800 is turning into $25. All because the property value increased. So the city say, hey, or the county, we want more money. Tax rate. Or the other scenario is the insurance company says, hey, this house doesn't cost. The replacement value of this house isn't what it was when you purchased it. So you got to pay this replacement value based upon what it's valued at now. They don't tell people this when you buying a house. They don't tell you that. And that's why I'm saying on this episode that people are exploited. You're exploited for what you don't know. You're exploited because the information that isn't passed on to you by these entities that are doing business with you, they don't tell you that we're not willing to lock you in for the same term. And they're not. There's no insurance company that's going to lock into whatever the rate is when you acquire the property or acquire the vehicle, most of the property. They're not going to lock into a 30-year, this is it for 30 years. They ain't going to lock into that because the same house that you're in, the value appreciates. So it costs them more to insure. So they want, to offset some of that risk. But I personally feel like there should be more of a standard and they should be held more accountable to the fact that if I have someone that's willing to go on a 30-year note at X amount of dollars from their mortgage institution and the taxes and the insurance is built in, we shouldn't be allowed to charge them more beyond that. I understand that the prices will increase or the value will increase. But what's the benefit of locking in to something for that extended amount of time and not being able to be the beneficiary of it? You get what I'm saying? Like, if you got a life insurance policy and you pay on it for 20 years, and you bought $100,000 policy, you paid on it for 20 years, the value didn't go up above $100,000. Same true if you bought a $200,000 policy and you paid on it for 20, 30 years. The value of it didn't go above beyond what you said, this is what I needed or this is what I wanted. But when it comes to homes and mortgages and insurance rates, they don't treat us the same. When you bought that house, it was 100, 150, 200,000. Now, the insurance company is saying, oh, it costs $400,000. Now, you got to pay the rate based upon $400,000. Lock me into the rate just like these life insurance companies do. Because the $20 I'm spending today might cost me $40 10 years from now because of inflation. And I'm still only getting the same benefit at the end of the day. And that's what they need to see. That's what needs to happen. So I just want you to open your eyes to just what it looks like when you're being exploited, whether that's credit issues, financing issues, whatever is offered to you conveniently, buy here, pay here, payday loans, anything that's meant to be convenient and suppress where you really are and give you a false sense of reality of where you are or the places that you want to be or the places that you're trying to go. Understand that a lot of people are exploited, taken advantage of. I mean, we can go down a crazy rabbit hole where it's deeper than just money and finances. People in general. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? How can we be a benefit to each other? Once we get whatever that benefit is, we move on. That's a deeper conversation. I ain't touching that one. Not today. I appreciate y'all listening, checking me out. Thank you. I ask you to like, subscribe, share, whatever platform that you're listening to it on. I appreciate y'all. Principles.